Today we're going to be working on author's purpose. And our I can statement is I can recognize the author's purpose and explain how it is expressed. When writers begin to write something, they decide what the purpose for their writing is going to be before they begin. Usually they write for three reasons: to persuade, to inform, or to entertain. All right? Persuade. When authors are trying to persuade, they're trying to convince the readers to do something or to agree with their idea. Okay. For example, if a student wants to persuade their parents to let them go to the movies, they'll use every reason why they need to go to the movies. They haven't seen their friends in a while. It's a really good movie. They won't be able to see it, on TV for a long time. Right. So they give reasons for their belief. They're trying to persuade someone to do something. The second one is to inform. This is where the author writes to provide information about a topic. Many of our informative and nonfiction books, not all, have a purpose of to inform. They'll give you facts and information so that you gain more information on the topic. And the last one is to entertain. When authors write to entertain, they write it so that readers will enjoy what they're reading, usually by telling a story. So most of our fiction books will be categorized as entertain. So the author's purpose for writing affects the content of what he or she writes. You need to be aware of that purpose so you can evaluate the content of what the author is writing. When writing informational text, our main purpose, the author's main purpose, is to inform. But she or he may also entertain with interesting comparisons or stories as examples. So it's difficult to write anything that doesn't have any personal opinions in it. So readers watch for an author trying to persuade them about a topic and not just informing them. We're going to read this passage together, and then we're going to determine the author's purpose, whether it's going to be to persuade, to inform, or entertain. This is called Pete versus the Python. The subtitle: Some dogs track criminals, other dogs sniff out quail in Florida. National Park Service officials are training a beagle puppy named Python Pete to locate 15-foot pythons. Here I see a picture of a snake. I'm guessing that's a python. So the caption is, Python Pete is being trained to track pythons such as this one. For years, Burmese pythons, which are not native to Florida, have been threatening to overrun the Everglades National Park. Exotic pet owners introduced the reptiles to the region by dumping them in the forest of southern Florida. The beasts have been multiplying quickly, eating native mangrove, fox squirrels, and wood storks, and other wildlife. National Park Service officials removed 52 Burmese pythons from the park from the mid-1990s through 2003. In 2004, they captured 61 pythons. That's where Python Pete comes in. The dog's owner, Lori Oberhofer, who works for the National Park Service, has been training Pete to track pythons and to bark when he spots one. Park officials would then spring into action, capturing and removing the reptile. Oberhofer got the idea after reading about Jack Russell Terriers that detect brown tree snakes in cargo at an airport in Guam, an island in the South Pacific. I figured that if a terrier could be trained to sniff out the brown tree snakes, then perhaps a beagle could be trained to sniff out pythons, Oberhofer told National Geographic News. Twice a week, Oberhofer puts a live python in a bag and drags it through a field. She then drops the bag in Pete's favorite rope toy. Oberhofer hooks Pete up to a special harness so he knows that it's time to find a snake. He continues to show improvement each time I take him out to train. She said it hasn't taken him long to figure out that smelling a python means playing for time. When we look at this passage, we want to think, what do we see in there? What's the author doing? All right, so we see a picture, and the author's giving us information about Python Pete tracking pythons, and this is a python. They're giving information about other dogs sniffing out quail in the National Park Service, but they're training a beagle puppy named Python Pete to locate 15-foot pythons. Okay. And we see in here that they give information about the Burmese pythons and how they got in the Everglades National Park, saying the numbers that happened in 2004. And then they talk about who Python Pete was, and how she got the idea to train this beagle to find pythons, and how it was from a Jack Russell Terrier who detects tree snakes in the airports in Guam. And then the last paragraph is how she is training him by dragging a bag with his toy alongside it. So then we think to ourselves, which one is it? Which is the author's purpose? Which of these three? Is he persuading us something? Is he trying to persuade us that beagles are the best dogs to track pythons? Is he persuading us that we need to cut down the Everglade forest? Is the author trying to inform us and give us information about the topic? Or is he telling a funny story or a story for enjoyment with characters and events? When we think about this story or this text, Pete versus Python, it's not a story. We don't have characters, setting, and events, so it's not to entertain. And I don't see in here anywhere where the author is trying to convince you to do something. So this purpose is to inform us about pythons that are in the National Park Service, in the Everglades National Park, and that they're training this beagle named Pete to track the pythons. So in our live lesson, we're going to break up into breakout groups, and they're going to read each of these 4 scenarios and these texts, and then they're going to try to decide whether their purpose is to persuade, inform, or entertain. All right? When they read it, they'll discuss what the purpose is and how they know that's the author's purpose. For you, I need you to, before you begin your lesson today, to read through each of these and try to, on your own, determine the purpose, whether it's to inform, persuade, or entertain.